introduction. This may sound like I'm doing a reading from an actual book, but I'm not. Not a published book, not a real book, not a fake book either. It's more ephemeral. It's happening as I speak. This is what I call a living book. I'm the book and I'm living. The premise of this story, this living book, is this. Even a blind man can see his soul if he is unafraid of the journey. The story goes like this, and oh, by the way, I don't think the story has an ending. I'm not sure. We'll see. Anyway, it's a comedy. Slightly amusing and moments where there is no truth to be had. But really, and you know this, truth is a bit overrated. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day, I spiraled uncontrollably through my past. I got stuck in some sort of a memory vortex. My memories became a monster. I created this monster, and it's after me, and I thought it wanted to kill me, kind of like the monster in Frankenstein, who always wants to kill Victor Frankenstein. But as you'll find out, I'm both Victor and the monster. Now, it began simple enough. The other day, I was having a freak because I thought I found the answer to my shitty, no good piece of crap, you gotta be kidding me. Did I do that? Swimming upstream in a river of bullshit, Sisyphean kind of life. You see, my life up to this point was filled with all sorts of woulda, shoulda, coulda, oops, shouldn't have done that. What do I do now? Well, that sucks. Guess I suck. Now imagine all of that poured into a bucket of narcissism made out of self-loathing. That's me. In short, I was an asshole for a very long time. I was mean, spiteful, prone to jealous rages. I was secretive. At my subatomic core was failure. I really felt like a fraud. And now in my dotage, I was kind of wanting to stop this looping shit stream of a-holery. I wanted to leave the desert of denial and maybe make amends for something. I wanted to change things around in my life and understand how an a-hole becomes an a-hole. So I was stuck in a life that I'm not sure how I got stuck in. I don't even know how to get unstuck. I mean, up to this point, I can't really tell you why I was a shitty person. So I was stuck in a life that I'm not sure how I got stuck in, and I don't know how to get unstuck. I mean, up to this point, I can't really tell you why I was a shitty person. I mean, I could tell you all the shitty things I've done, but I couldn't tell you why. I wanted to let go of my life because I knew it was going to kill me. I was hoping for, some miracle, like a Song of Bernadette moment. So this is what happened. I was desperate. This was my last-ditch effort to find out why I'm such an a-hole. I don't want to be an a-hole anymore. So in a moment of exhaustion and desperation, I visited the oracle, the fount of knowledge, otherwise known as Wikipedia. Now here's the scene. I was sitting in a chair, with my laptop on my lap. I fire up the wiki. It was a gut reaction. I just fired it up. I didn't type my name into the wiki search bar or anything like that. I didn't type, why is Richard an asshole, ? I typed in something else. And this is crazy. I don't know why I typed what I typed. It was just an instantaneous thought. 2 words, hungry ghost. Why was I typing that? Was that something I overheard in a conversation? Maybe it was a song lyric or a book title. Anyway, I hit enter, and this is what popped up on Wiki. Okay, Hungry Ghost is a myth in Chinese Buddhism in which beings are driven by intense emotional needs in an animalistic way. They have big bellies, and tiny throats. People are born as hungry ghosts because they lived a previous life of greed, envy, and jealousy. I was taken aback. Those are the first three building blocks of my personality. So I read on. Hungry ghosts are also associated with addiction, obsession, and compulsion, the last three building blocks of my personality. I was meant to see this, It explains every choice I've ever made. I entered a state of deliverance. But here, the final Wiki reveal. Here's what the final Wiki reveal was. And it's, in the actual myth itself. So here's the myth. There is this rich man who sold sugarcane juice, right? And one day a monk came to his house, looking for, juice for some reason. And then the man had to leave. So he instructed his wife to give the monk the drink, in his absence. Instead of doing this, and this is in the myth, she secretly urinated in the monk's bowl, added sugarcane juice to it, and gave it to the monk, which is kind of bonkers, right? But when the monk brought the bowl, to his lips to drink, he stopped, poured the bowl out, and he left. Many years later, the wife of the sugarcane juice guy died. Now get this. She was reborn as a hungry ghost. Thank you, baby Jesus. Finally, an answer. Clearly, people, I am an a-hole because I am reincarnated of a complete a-hole. Man, that explains my a-holishness and my a-hole life. It makes all the sense in the world. I was born into a a-hole. You know what I'm saying? And it's not my fault. It's not my fault that I'm an a-hole. So then I knew I needed to find the one asshole in my family tree who became the hungry ghost. So naturally, I leave the wiki, hop onto Ancestries.com, and started to research my family history, looking for some distant relative who had a proclivity to urinate into bowls or cups and offer them up as refreshing beverage. Eventually, I found that one person. She was on my dad's side of the family, an ancient relative of sorts. Her name was Frigid Polson. Frigid Polson. Frigid Polson. She was this insane person who lived in the 19th century and was a children's book writer who had some momentary fame. She also led a scandalous life in that she was married and divorced 5 times, had numerous affairs with men and women, and also had a penchant, now get this, for cruel pranks, involving what? Bodily fluids, pee and poop, mostly pee. She died a strange death. She was suffocated by a hand puppet. I don't want to mislead. It's not that a hand puppet came to life and suffocated her. Someone stuffed Frigid's mouth with a hand puppet, probably because she was such an a-hole. She died. Now, follow my logic. She died and was reincarnated into me, moi. I am finally delivered. Don't you understand? I'm frigid. Finally an answer. That's what I've been, that was what I was thinking at the moment. Finally an answer. To me, it explained everything. That was the explanation for living such a wrong-ass life. Now, the weirdness doesn't stop there. So, let's review. We have the wiki, frigid reincarnation shit. Then this happened. And as God is my witness, on that same night that my son and wife were in a living room watching TV, and me in the sitting room away from them with my laptop on my lap, dialed into the frigid Polson moment, I have a Marley is dead to begin with kind of a moment. I'm literally thrown back in time. Not figuratively, I'm talking full-blown adverb, okay? I become unglued from space and time, and suddenly I am 16 years old. And this is the truth, I am 16, and I'm seeing my father die. I'm in my house, and my wife and son are in the other room, but I'm also back in the apartment where my father died. I'm back in that moment. I'm in that moment. This is the truth. I am 16 and living with my dad, which was the collateral damage from a shitstorm divorce my parents had. It's spring, but it's still cold. He calls me into his room, my dad does. He's been sick for over a week. And we both agreed it must be, a bad cold or flu. We live in an apartment complex located at the end of a runway at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Because of that, conversations with my father were difficult to be had. Conversations would go kind of like this. My dad would say, something like, how was school today? And I would respond, well, Dad, today What's the point, right? What's the point? So we never really talked. Anyway, he calls me into his bedroom, and he needs help getting to the bathroom. He's too weak and drunk to stand. He needs help. And my dad, by the way, was an incredibly large man. He was an incredibly fat man. When people describe things as being really heavy, they usually describe it as weighing a ton. My dad literally weighed a ton. He was huge. And to get him out of bed and into the bathroom would take, if memory serves me correctly, a total of 10 steps. 10 steps. When I was a kid, I compulsively counted steps. I believed that there was a magical and mysterious connection between the different places based on the same, step count. For example, from my third grade school desk to the hallway was approximately 12 steps. It was also 12 steps from my back porch to the basement where the largest rat on record lived. Therefore, because of the fact that they were the same steps, that meant that the rat could transport itself into the hallway of my school because both places were connected by the same amount of steps. I swear on occasion I'd see the rat, wandering the hallway. 10 steps to the bathroom. That is the amount of steps it will take to get my one-ton dad to the bathroom. He needs me. He can't do it on his own. I need to carry him for 10 steps. At my high school, it was 10 steps from my locker to the locker of a girl that I had the most painful and devastating crush on. I knew how many steps it was from my apartment all the way to school and to her locker. 7,678 steps. And I would wince with pain each one of those 7,678 steps because the crush that I had on her was so painful. It was physically and psychically painful. Being in love with her actually hurt, but I loved the pain. That's weird. I loved the pain and I wanted the pain. And when I would think of her, which was always, I would cramp up in pain and I'd also get an erection. Imagine walking for 7,678 steps, cramped over in pain with an erection. It is from that experience that I learned that love, real love, is so painful, just painful. You not only love that person, but you also have to love the pain. That's how you really succeed at love. Loving the pain. So he calls me into his bedroom. I have to help him to the bathroom. 10 steps. I started thinking of her, and I'm beginning to cramp up a bit, but I gotta concentrate. I gotta find a way to lift him, right? And with a great effort, I roll him onto his side with his back facing me. And then I hook, my right arm underneath his armpit and around his shoulder. I did the same with my left arm. I was going to pull him out of the bed and drag him like a really large sack of potatoes to the bathroom, which was 10 steps away. I just thought of something. Oh, by the way, the girl that I had a devastating, painful crush on, her name was Cressida Dick. I don't know if I mentioned her name. She was very tall, extremely skinny, like scary skinny. She had long, wavy red hair. And she had big, full lips and probably the thickest glasses I'd ever seen on a human being. Oh, and her eyebrows were so cute, They looked like little red caterpillars, and I swear I would see them move independently of each other. I never once said a word to her. I was just too scared and frightened. But that's because I was born scared and frightened. Life frightened me, which really sucks. So we would do the silent, smile and nod as we passed each other in the hallway, and her red caterpillar eyebrows would kind of salute at me. Anyway, I'm trying to pull my dad out of bed. Get my dad out of bed. 10 steps. I could hear in the distance a plane coming in for, a landing. And I pull with all my strength. I pull him right out of the bed and my dad falls on top of me and dies. I'm pinned underneath my dad, who was now dead. As I lay pinned beneath him, I feel all life leave his body. He even made that death rattle noise you hear about. That moment pinned underneath my dead father was the last time I ever counted steps. I never counted steps after that. A week later, as it turned out, was the last time I would ever see Cressida Dick in person, my first and one true, devastatingly painful love. She disappeared from school. I just assumed her family moved away. I want to cry, but the absurdity of the situation prevented any sort of welling up of emotion. A really fat man is on top of me, and he is dead, and he was my dad. I squeeze out from underneath my father. I emerge from his right armpit like a birth. I was covered in his last remaining secretions that happen when people die. I stand and I look down at my dad, and he really, honestly, he did not look dead. I've seen a lot of dead people in movies and TV, but he looked nothing like that. He just looked like himself. He did have a faint expression of questioning on his face, kind of like, okay, so what just happened? I find my way to the phone. I want to dial 911, but instead, for some reason, I call my mom. Jesus Christ, do you know what time it is? Dad is dead. I have to work tomorrow. Dad just died. God damn it, I just knocked over the ashtray. What the hell do you want? Dad died. If you need something, just go wake your father. I can, he's dead. Oh shit, you woke me up for this? Are you sure he just didn't pass out? No, he's dead. He's on the bedroom floor, Mom, and he's dead. God damn it. That would be typical of him to die. Mom, Dad is dead. Okay already. Did you call 911? Well, no, I called you. Why? Well, I thought it might be important for you to know that just now, Dad died. Hang up and dial 911 and get an ambulance there before he loses his shit all over the place. Well, I think he already did. Oh, for Christ's sake, Richard, call now. I'll be over there within the hour. She hangs up. I dial 911. I explain the situation. I sit on the floor next to my dad. And I listen to planes coming in for a landing. So right after that dumpster dive of a moment, I'm thinking, I'm having a nervous breakdown. Or maybe I'm in a weird version of It's a Wonderful Life. But this one's called It's a Piece of Crap Life. And it's not only me who wishes he was never born, it's all of the people I have ever known. So my wife and son are still in the living room. I hear the TV on. They're watching America's Funniest Home Videos. They love that show. I'm wondering, can they hear me? Can you hear when someone goes back in time? It doesn't make a sound. My wife and son are laughing at videos of babies projectile vomiting, and I'm wondering if I'm tripping. Did my one-ton dad really just die on top of me now? I know he did back then. Am I going to die on top of my son? Is this some Greek myth thing happening? He's approaching 16, my son is, and I'm a mess. Is this a disaster waiting to happen? I want to do that ostrich thing. I just don't want to be a one-ton dad, but it seems inevitable. It's not like I'm wanting this. It's not like my life's goal, was to have a son. I'm a selfish bastard. I kept telling my wife, I do not possess the emotional tools to raise a child. I am an asshole, and I'm going to be an asshole dad. I have been saying that same thing for nearly 16 years. I know it's just around the corner. It's going to happen. One day, you're normal, and then poof, you're an asshole and your kid hates you. There was, and still is, this scenario loop that constantly plays in my head. And this scenario is about me scolding my son. And it goes like this. The scenario goes like this. I would scold him. I would say, "I scold you." And then he would cry. I would wipe his tears. We would hug, eat chips, and sing and dance to Raffi songs. But that's not the scenario that played out in my head. The scenario was actually like this. It really is this. My son repeatedly stabs me in the ankle with a boning knife. Now, in real life, my son has never stabbed me in the ankle with a boning knife, but in the looping scenario, he does. He does the stabbing. And I scold him because it's not a proper thing for a little boy to do. So I say, "What is your goddamn problem? You frickin' moron? You spawn of Satan? Are you trying to kill me? Hey, baby, I'm Kronos. You just messed with the wrong dude. I'm gonna bite your frickin' head off." Then naturally he would start bawling and screaming, and then I would suffer a psychic crack up and run into some corner of the house and sit, on the ground, and hug myself like I was Sissy Spacek in Carrie. And I would sob intermittently while reading Emily Dickinson poetry aloud to no one but myself. My son is a teenager now, and he's great. He's better than me, which is a lot to do with my wife. They are both in the next room watching America's funniest home videos about silly dogs. And I swear I hear Bob Saget say, "Hey, Richard, watch out." Then I immediately Billy Pilgrim my ass back to April 5th, 1968. Oh, I didn't see that coming. April 5th, 1968, on the west side of Chicago, the blacks, as they were called on TV, poured out into the streets of the west side of Chicago. Just one day earlier, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and it seemed like the end of the world. At least that's the way that I saw it on TV. You see, on April 5th, 1968, I was watching the riot on the evening newscast. WGN, the local independent station, televised the riot like it was a major sporting event. It was as if nothing else was happening in the world. I was like a mini Schopenhauer. The only thing that I was seeing and hearing was the only thing that was happening in the world. The riot consumed a stretch of 28 blocks in Chicago, just west of Madison Street. $5 million of damage, over 10,000 police called in, as well as 6,000 National Guard. Mayor Richard Daley, who had seemed to have been the mayor of Chicago since Christ was a child, was not going to have it. And he ordered some major ass beatings, and there were major ass beatings. And I was watching it all on TV. Then, like I was shunting, a shunting train, I moved forward 4 months. It's August 8th. I'm watching TV again. I'm watching another riot. I am 10 years old, watching the world melt at the Democratic Convention. It was another group, young kids. They were protesting the war in Vietnam, among other things. Mayor Daley released the hounds. Thousands of law enforcement and National Guard did some more major ass beating. I sat before the TV and saw the city implode again, right before my eyes on WGN TV. The revolution was televised. I'm only 10 years old at that time, only 6 years away from having my dad die on top of me. I'm also 32 years away from having a son that hopefully I won't die on top of. I'm sitting not 3 inches away from an old black and white TV. The heat from the cathode ray tube was turning my skin red and burning my eye sockets. The hippies, the peaceniks, rabble-rousers, police, the National Guard, thieves, thugs, prostitute, junkies, johns, white racists, blacks, Mexican, Puerto Ricans, and groups of all kind were fighting a civil war not too far from where I lived. This was the only thing that was happening in the world. I didn't understand it, but I'm not scared. I'm sitting in front of the TV and I feel safe because the TV is like a big safe holding in all the violence and hate. It's not near me, it's locked in there. But as with all things in my life, once I feel one thing, the opposite happens. Mr. Brown, a neighbor who lives 2 doors down, loses his shit in an epic way. Mr. Brown was probably doing what I was doing, sitting 3 inches away from the TV. But I bet the cathode ray tube shot beams of riot hate right through his eye sockets and burned his brain. On the night of August 8th, his brain exploded from riot hate. He, Mr. Brown, ran out of his house, dressed only in a t-shirt and boxers. He waved a big gun in the air. He wore a really big black horn-rimmed glasses. He had a crew cut and a gut that stuck out like it had eaten a basketball. Mr. Brown, by the way, was a salesman. He sold calendars and framed prints of dogs playing poker. That's what he did. That was his life. Convincing businesses or people the importance of having an image of dogs playing poker hanging in your office or living room. Of course, my family, we had to have one of those pictures in our house. My dad really liked the picture, and he hung it over the liquor cabinet. Honestly, the dogs playing poker really confused me. The family dog that we had back then was a total loser. It was a terrible family pet. It did nothing but cause trouble and heartache. No one in our family even liked the dog. We couldn't even remember, the dog's name. We just called it Dog. Anyway, my point is that I was confused by the dogs playing poker because our shitty dog was my only perspective on dogs. So in my young pea brain, I wonder, how did that artist who drew or painted the dogs, how did he get them to stand still? How did he get those dogs to smoke cigars, drink scotch, and hold cars? Also in the picture, you could see 2 dogs cheating. What was that all about? April 8th, 1968, Mr. Brown is out on the sidewalk in only a t-shirt and boxers. He's waving about a loaded gun, and he is screaming at the top of his lungs, and he's using the N-word like he invented it, like he was the inventor of the N-word. He was yelling, "The N are coming! The N are coming!" Like he was a, racist Paul Revere. Footnote, I'm not pronouncing fully the N-word, not because I'm doing some politically correct bullshit or afraid that I'll get Twitter bombed. The N-word is not the point. Okay? The point is that the world that I was inhabiting at that time was melting away, and it was full of racists. Anyway, back to the story. So, a gunshot. Mr. Brown fires his gun into the air. I realize at that moment that the end of the world is on TV, and now it's just outside my window. I see Mr. Brown reloading the gun. I hear the pellets from the first round hit the sidewalk, windows, and parked cars. He fires again and does some more of his racist Paul Revere shit. At this point in time, I am out of control, frightened, shaking. I do not see my parents. I don't know where the hell they are. I'm kind of like, NEM, Uncle Henry, where are you? I got to hide. So I run behind the TV. The logic of my pea brain tells me that because I'm behind that TV, that must mean that my face now must be on the other side of the TV. I'm freaking out because my face is now on the other side of the TV, the front of the TV, which means all of the hippies, the peaceniks, the rabble-rousers, the National Guards, thieves, prostitutes, junkies, johns, races, and groups of all kinds will see me on the TV, and they'll know I'm behind the TV, and then they'll grab me and drag me to the town square, where I'll have a black bag placed on my head, and some big dude with an axe will cut it off, and then they'll stick my head on a pole at the entrance of, to Chicago, as a warning to all who pass. I close my eyes to shut off my existence, because that's what I did then, and honestly, I still do to today. I close my eyes and leave and try to find a happy place, but there was no happy place to be found. Then I move laterally in time. I hear my mother's voice and the tinkling of ice cubes in a glass. I'm not on TV anymore. Instead, I'm on the couch in our living room. I look around and I see all my siblings sitting about the room as if they had been summoned to some high holy event. My dad is at the record player and he puts on a Juan Garcia Esquivel record. My mom enters walking like she was doing the cha-cha. Yeah, she's got a Bloody Mary in one hand and a scotch and water in the other, which she hands to my dad in a cha-cha-like way. She drags, she takes a big drag on her cigarette in a cha-cha kind of way and blows out the smoke like she's some high fashion dragon. She says, "Your father and I are leaving each other. So which one of you want to live with him and which one of you want to go with me?" What the hell is she talking about? What? You're leaving each other? Is that possible? Does that even happen? Do parents leave each other? What the hell is what? My 10-year-old brain cannot understand that. That it is an actual choice one can have to leave. I'm thinking, do I have the same choice? I could just leave when I want. I mean, we're not permanently stuck together. I don't know if this is good or bad. I don't know what the hell is going on. And my dad starts to say something, but I couldn't hear him. I could see a conversation developing between my brothers and sisters and my parents, but I suddenly couldn't hear anything. And then very quickly, I couldn't even see their faces. I couldn't see anybody's faces. All I saw was a bright, shiny light, like an asterisk. And it obscures everyone's face. And I spin off to some other place. And that some place at first had no sound, smell, nothing. But eventually I see that I'm in a white-tiled room. Then out of nowhere, Mr. Brown appears. And he is still in his boxers and t-shirt, and he has a big bloody hole in the side of his head. Then I see the dogs playing poker. The same exact dogs in the same exact position, just like in the paintings and calendars Mr. Brown sells. Mr. Brown, bloody and half naked, starts serving the dogs drinks. And the nasty, gray, grumpy dog that was cheating in the picture, that rat bastard was cheating right there in front of me. It's like I'm there, but I can't be seen. I hear the dogs talking. They weren't speaking dog, they were speaking English, and I understood every word. Mr. Brown finishes passing out the drinks and sits on a crate in the corner, and with his head buried in his hands, he weeps silently. The rat bastard gray dog is talking. He says, "They need to go back to where they came from. Ship them back to Africa." The lassie dog laughs. The pipe-smoking dog says, "I don't believe they have the intellectual capacity to live on their own. They need to be rounded up and stuck in pens." Then all the brown and white hounds started singing, "Mammy," under their breath. The dogs are racist. The dogs in the paintings and calendars that Mr. Brown sold are racist dogs. They were talking racist shit. How do dogs get to be racist? That's the question I'm trying to answer to myself. Mr. Brown stands up and he looks all crazy. And he just blurts out, "Shut up! Shut the hell up!" And the dogs freeze. And he goes on to say, "I spent my life selling dog calendars. I earned a living. And them blacks is just acting black and wanting Uncle Sam to pay for them to be black. But what about me? Do I get paid for being white? No, I have to sell dog calendars. I hated all of you dogs because of that." "Well, I thought you hate the blacks." "Shut up! What the hell kind of life is it, selling dog calendars?" Then the lassie dog says, "Is that why you put a hole in the side of your head?" "I put a hole in my head because I couldn't write, you bastards. I put a hole in my head because I wanted to be black so I could be white. How did I end up this way? A dead old white man who once sold dog calendars. What a world, what a world." The white-tiled room, Mr. Brown and the poker-playing racist dogs fade into whiteness. My house fades in. It's night. I'm 10 years old. I'm at the top of my stairs, and I'm in my underwear, and I'm holding a suitcase. Right at that moment, I'm thinking about the leaving part of life, and that I was never told that could happen, that was an actual option in life. People can just leave, just like that. They're with you, and then they can choose not to be with you. They can make a choice without you ever knowing. Once people leave, what is to become of you? What is to become of me? Jesus. I feel my mother's presence behind me. I turn around and face her. She says, "Sleepwalking? Really? I had you pegged for a bedwetter." She walks past me and down the stairs, walks to the liquor cabinet. Beneath the picture of the racist poker-playing dogs, and mixes a drink, lights a cigarette, takes a deep drag, and slowly blows the smoke out of her mouth. She looks up at me and says, "I don't think your dad wants you. Sorry. So I guess you're going to have to live with me. We're leaving tomorrow." I then flow back to the present. I'm in the present. I'm back in the present. My wife and son are turning off the TV. I'm in the same room that they are. I'm sitting in the room. They are chatting, and laughing, but I can barely hear them. Both shout goodnight. I faintly hear her close the bedroom door. The previous moment is still ringing in my ears. 1968. I still have that first feeling of astonishment of my parents' split. That feeling was still, stuck inside me. In genetics, when a cell divides, one of its main jobs is to make sure that each of the two new cells get a full, perfect copy of genetic material. Mistakes during copying or unequal division of the genetic material between cells can lead to cells that are unhealthy or dysfunctional. When my parents divided, something didn't copy over. So my wife shouts from the bedroom, to let the dog in. The dog is scratching at the sliding glass door. I walk into the living room where the door is. I see the dog through the glass, and she is so happy that I'm going to let her in. She is so grateful. I notice that. It affects me, the grateful part. Could I ever be that unconditionally grateful for anything? I lost the grateful part of life when it was weaponized. It's like I'm in a pneumatic tube being sucked back and forth in time. I'm sitting in a comfy chair with my laptop on my lap. Wife and son are asleep. I look at the four walls at this point in time to orient myself. I look at the walls with the pictures of the family and framed art pieces. These pictures are buoys marking the present. My eyes fixate on the framed pictures and art because I don't want to go down in the past. This is a mental crack-up, I'm sure of it. I had to find a way to get up and walk upstairs to where my wife is sleeping and inform her that I'm freaking nuts. I'm going crazy. So I stand up and I'm about to tell her I'm going crazy. Then immediately, I'm in a line at a hobby store. I look around to see what the hell is happening, and I feel someone holding my hand, a small hand holding my hand. I look down, and it is my son who is holding my hand. He's dressed in a Cub Scout outfit, and he looks like he's 9 years old. That's because he's 9 years old. And I'm buying a Pinewood Derby car kit. My wife put our son into Cub Scouts. I didn't want the Cub Scout thing, but my wife won the argument, as she wins all arguments, even if she is wrong. The first father and son Cub Scout thing that we had to do was the Pinewood Derby race. So right now, I'm holding his hand, and I'm thinking, dear God, what is your plan? What do you want me to learn from this? Anyway, father and son buy a Pinewood Derby car kit, which comes with one wood block, 4 wheels, 2 one-piece axles, 4 nails, 5 hubcaps, and instructions. We have to build a Pinewood Derby car that can go down a ramp faster than any other Pinewood Derby car. My son and I have to build this car together. Cub Scouts and the building of this car will most surely, according to the literature, make sure my son will not turn into a raping crackhead. I have to be the leader and a person of knowledge, a person who understands the physics behind a wooden car speeding down a wooden ramp. I'm supposed to coach my son to become a Pinewood Derby winner. But I'm not crafty. I'm not good with tools. My imagination is frozen because I'm so full of dread that this is not going to turn out well. And guess what? It really did not turn out well. It did not turn out well then, and it will not this time. I did the best that I could, and no offense, my son was useless. I mean, he was only 9 years old. I mean, what the hell could we share together? What could we do together? He didn't know tools or measuring. I didn't know tools or measuring. It was a disaster. Eventually, a car is somehow assembled, but it's ridiculous looking. I mean, it has no discernible shape to speak of. It looks like something that a person who is withdrawing from heroin would make. You know? There was a palpable disdain from other parents when I took the car out of the shoebox at the big Pinewood Derby event. You could hear the thinking. That boy's father loves eating heroin. All around our shitty car were red cars and blue cars and green cars, roadsters, dragsters, Formula One looking cars with amazing decals and paint jobs. Ours looked like a shiny, gross alien baby. The Cub Scout dad running the race asked for rubber gloves before touching our car. Finally, cars are in place. A lever is thrown. The gate is up, and the cars are speeding down the ramp. All of the other cars are looking gorgeous, like galloping thoroughbreds at the Kentucky Derby. Our car, on the other hand, looks like a Soviet-era space capsule re-entering the atmosphere. I mean, shit is flying off of it. It looks like a fire had started, and there appears to be smoke and flames. I may have just imagined that. All the other cars race past the toy checkered flag, and then a few moments later, the grotesque alien baby car limped in on two wheels. It was sadness personified. I was so mortified. I didn't know where to look or sit. I just wanted to run screaming from the Derby. I let my son down. Clearly, his car was a piece of shit. And by the way, if you don't know this, there is a caste system within the Cub Scouts, and if you can't do the Derby thing, you're pretty much an untouchable. My son was in 4th grade, and the difference between him and me is that at 4th grade, I already assumed that my life was over, and I was just looking for some alternative reality. But with my son, nothing stuck to him. We got in the car, I was on the verge of tears, and he said, "Well, that was fun." I stared at him for the longest time. It was at that point that I felt a real, powerful love for my son. But it wasn't without my own self-involvement. A question appears through the fog of love. Why was I never like my son? Am I in love with who he is? I emerged from that previous moment like I had been underwater for minutes. I suck in the air. I'm disoriented. I hear someone upstairs going to the bathroom, and once again, I spiral back in time. This time, I'm the Cub Scout. I signed up to be a Cub Scout. I was reacting instinctually. I saw it as maybe, a normal place or a gateway toward normal and away from the deep shithole that I was in. Of course, my parents, blew a gasket when I told them that I was going to be a Cub Scout, because there was an unspoken rule in our house not to involve the parents in anything. They were too busy being their own dysfunctional selves. They had shit to do, like be miserable and drink and smoke and talk about being miserable. I broke the news and my dad raged like a 3-year-old. How could I commit him to such grueling hours at PAC meetings? My dad had things to do, like drink scotch and be miserable. The great and powerful Cub Scout in the sky assigned me to a newly formed bear pack about 2 miles away. This just amped up my dad's anger, because now he would have to drive me to the Cub Scout meetings. Anyway, the Cub Scout day arrives. My father and I are in the car, and he's doing that mad driving. I ignore the mad driving, which only pisses him off even more. I'm only imagining what it would be like to be a Cub Scout. I read the brochure. I looked at the pictures, and it was going to be amazing. It would save my life. My life will suddenly have some meaning. I will feel wanted and useful, and Cub Scouts will be my new religion. Hiking, hunting, camping in the wilderness, getting to know wildlife. In my head, I pictured it to be like the Jungle Book, not that fake Rudyard Kipling Jungle Book. I mean the real one by Disney. Cub Scouts would be like living in a Disney world. Where you could have adventures unscathed and have wolves and tigers and friends, swing from trees, fly with birds, ride horses in an open prairie. What an amazingly perfect life, a Disney life. We arrived to the home of the very first Cub Scout meeting, my new Disney life. A knock on the door. The door does not open, but a voice from behind the door tells us to go around to the back to the garage. And we did just that. Just a few feet now away from my Disney life. We get to the garage, open the side of the door, and enter into a room filled with sounds of braying and crying and whining and screaming. These are not Disney sounds. My dad and I, we are frozen in place by the sight of kids drooling and spinning in circles, and kids with big pee stains on their pants, and kids on the floor in fetal positions staring mindlessly into space. The picture was straight out of a Ken Kesey novel. The Cub Scout pack that I was assigned to was made up entirely of mentally challenged and severely mentally challenged kids. There are not severely mentally challenged people in the Cub Scout Disney World that I saw on the brochure. This was not going to be a Disney World. My father goes immediately into DEFCON 1 rage mode. What the hell have you got me into? I see into my father's soul. He's trying to be a father, damn it. He has tried so hard, but he can't get the part right. And I'm thinking, just pretend, Dad. Just pretend, Dad. Do dad stuff. But my dad looks so uncomfortable and vulnerable, and it's terrifying for me to see my father so exposed. But it's hilarious to the rest of the room. My father says, I've already raised some kids already. I'm tired. Can't you raise yourself? You ask and ask and ask and ask for things. What's up with that? I'm tired. Show a little initiative, you brat. Here now is my father and I sitting on metal folding chairs. And honestly, really, we are the mentally challenged. And that entire Cub Scout pack knows that. Oh, they know that. They are possessed of a truth. And we wouldn't know it, that truth, if it were to bite us in the ass. Somehow I can't remember the rest. I know the meeting was not Disney, it was a disaster. We are home in the driveway, and my father and I somehow were there. We made it home. He and I sitting in the car, and somehow he has a drink of scotch in his hand. Jesus, where did that come from? It's like a Star Trek thing or something. He just forms his hand into a position of a holding glass, and poof, a glass of scotch appears. A song plays on the AM radio. My dad is someplace. We're in the car together, but he's someplace. He's someplace else. The glow from the radio dial casts a light on a man, a father, who is someplace else. He looks like one of those hyper-realistic sculptures. His eyes are cast off into the far distance. Maybe he's trying to find a way out. Maybe he is seeing into the future and watching himself die on top of me. For the record, my dad was funny, conflicted, outrageous, and hypersensitive. He was a romantic, a dreamer who was obsessed with his own demons. He was a rager, a drinker, and an intensely scared man. I think he got stuck in teenagerhood, emotionally speaking, and he could never leave. Even though my dad was father to 6 kids, he was just a kid himself. And that's the shitty part of being a man. You could be stuck in time like being a kid, but your body grows old. You're old, but you're still a shitty kid. I think that's unique to guys. There were short moments when my dad would do sweet things like build a fort for us in the backyard, build bikes from scrap and paint them with brilliant designs. He would entertain us with his great comedic skills, but in other times, which seemed like all of the time, he would rage, which always made me and the rest of the siblings forget the good times. Me and my little brother were the usual victims of his rage, which was abetted by my mother. He would whip us with a belt as punishment for our indiscretions. Now, this whipping wasn't just a light smack on the ass. I mean, these were like Jesus lashes. And I'm thinking, what did we do to deserve such punishment? I mean, I wasn't starting a new religion or being a grandma raper or cooking drugs in my bedroom. Maybe I broke something. Maybe I didn't do a specific chore. Maybe I talked back to my mother. And then he would say, go down to the woodshed. That's what he would say. Like he was some sort of executioner or something. Down to the woodshed. What that meant was that me or my brother, or the both of us at the same time, had to go down to the basement, pull our pants down, and with our arms stretched out, lean against a rock wall. After a while, he would come down into the basement, he would take his belt off, and he would beat our asses black and blue. While he was beating our asses black and blue, he would talk. He would talk. Say things, having this weird running dialogue with himself. At first, it started off as verbal admonishment for our apparent sins, like, don't you ever do that again, or I will continue to spank you until you have learned your lesson. Then it would devolve into some sort of dark pit of despair. It was as if our bare asses were like his therapist, He was like, I never got anything. My parents only gave me a bag of dirt and a can of beans for Christmas. I have no friends. I was covered in pimples. My parents ignored me. My life sucked, and your mother thinks I'm gay. After a while, instead of crying out in pain from the lashes of his belt, my brother and I listened intently and, responded, "So, Dad, how did the dysfunction with your family, how does that make you feel?" "It made me feel unwanted, like I was an arrow in the heel of my father Achilles." Over time, his drinking increased, which made the therapy beating decrease. That was because he was too tipsy and kept swinging and missing our butts and would end up hitting himself. He would swing and miss our asses and hit himself. And then he'd take a moment and look at our naked asses, and you could see he was wondering, why are there naked asses in front of me? And then he would wonder why he was hitting himself, He would try 3 more times to make contact, It was just like, oh, son of a, oh my God, I can't. And then he'd say, "Oh, fuck it, I'm tired," and go upstairs and have more scotch. It went on like that until my parents split up. And the spanking, the Jesus lashings, the beating chores fell to my mother, who instead of a belt, used a metal spatula on our faces. My body twitches. I hear the toilet. Footsteps. Then a bedroom door closes. Where am I now? It's now 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm afraid of everything at this point, okay? Clearly, my world has become unhinged, which seems like a great time to open a bottle of red wine. As I pour the wine into a glass, I see myself, a version of myself, tumble out of the bottle of wine and splash into the glass. And then that version of myself reaches up out of the glass of wine and pulls me down into the glass of wine. I'm drowning in a glass of wine, and then I'm not. I'm not in the glass of wine because I'm on a bunk bed. I'm reading a Superboy comic. I've gone back in time again. I'm reading a Superboy comic. I'm living with my mom, and I'm reading this Superboy comic book. I want to be Superboy. How super is it to have Superman as your dad? You get to be the son, the boy, the proudful progeny of Superman. That's like the ultimate Christmas gift. I tie a blanket around my neck like it were a cape. I'm going to jump off the bunk and fly through the apartment looking for Superman, my dad. I jump, but the other end of the blanket is hooked on a bedpost. So I snap backwards and I crash through a bedroom window and just hang out of the bedroom window by my neck. I'm in a bit of a shock. I'm dazed. A crowd forms. There are shouts from the crowd. "Don't do it, Jesus loves you." I'm trying to get my bearing, but it's kind of hard because, I'm choking to death. And directly across from me, where I am hanging by my neck, I see a girl about my age standing in a window. So I just stare at her, and she stares back. And we are completely locked into each other. It's just her and me and no one else. Oxygen is leaving my body. I may be dying, and then the girl in the window directly across from me lifts her dress over her head, and now she is completely naked. a naked girl. I have never seen a naked girl at that point ever. I'm thinking, this is a pretty good thing to see before you die. Who was this girl? I had never seen her around the neighborhood. Was she new? Should I tell her to put her clothes back on? I'm starting to fade, pass out, but I don't want to. I want to hang on to what I am seeing. Who is this girl? Is this a vision? Am I having a religious episode? Is this an angel sent to escort me into the next realm? She did kind of look like one of those naked angel girls that you'd see in classic paintings. Then I felt a sharp tug on my neck, like my head was being ripped off. This is it, I'm dying. But no, it's my mother. Who the hell is gonna pay for that window, goddammit? I look up and I watch her take a deep drag on her cigarette that she had stuck in the side of her mouth like a sailor. She pulls me back up through the window and grounds me until the end of time. I look out at the broken window at the other building where the girl was, but she's gone. I spend the rest of the day looking at the window, hoping to see the naked angel girl again. Where are you? I fall asleep, and then the next morning I wake to the cursing of the super of the building, the superintendent, as he's nailing up a big sheet of wood to cover the broken window that I fell out of. He leaves, stomping and cursing on his way out. And the board has a tiny pinhole in it. I peek through the hole, and I see the girl in the window looking out. Was she looking for me? Maybe she was wondering if I died, and I should go and tell her that I have not died, but I'm grounded for life. So I have to sneak out of the apartment, cross to the street to her building. I look up, and I see her. And she looks down at me, and she smiles. I took that as a direct invitation to go up and see her, to see an angel. I have been invited to hang out with an angel. I walked into her building, up 4 flights of stairs, and knock on her door. She opens the door. We stared at each other for what seems like, an hour. Nothing but silence. And then she broke the silence with this startling statement. She says, "I removed my clothes to save your life." And with a gesture of her arm, she offered me into her apartment. Inside her apartment, she said, "I looked like a fool, but fools need to be saved. I used my body to save your life." I started to cry, like crazy cry, like that crazy cry, because that was what I'd been needing to hear almost all of my young life. Someone will save me. They will actually save me. They will protect me, nurture me, love me, not because they're obligated, but because they are compelled by love. She leads me to her couch. She takes off her dress. She sits down on the couch and gestures in a way, saying that I should do the same. I sat not too close to her, and we just stared at each other. Then she sort of ordered her hand, and she said, "Okay, you take off your clothes." And I did. And we stared at each other. We never touched. each other. We never kissed. We didn't talk. We did nothing. We did nothing. There was silence and staring. We would just stare at each other. It felt so comfortable and natural, like we have been staring into each other's eyes for years. And I cried. I cried that crazy cry. I cried at the sheer purity of it all. After a length of time, we got dressed, and I left. So this goes on every day, literally every day, except Saturday and Sunday for some reason. I would go up to her apartment, we would disrobe, stare, and I would cry. That hard, crazy crying, sobbing. It was perfect. I never felt so much peace ever. Safe. I am safe with Naked Angel Girl. The next week I leave Naked Angel Girl. It's a Monday, and I feel some anxiety building after I leave her for some reason. My gut tells me that there is something not right in my life. As I leave her building, I'm in the middle of the street that separates me from the Naked Angel Girl's building. I look up at the sky, and I passively watch the earth orbit the sun a few times. And then it's Friday. I know it's Friday because just like in a movie, a newspaper blows onto my face. I pull it off of my face and I look at it, and below the masthead, it says Friday. 4 days have passed and I'm not sure where they went. I hear sirens down the street. Several fire trucks are racing towards me. I turn and look up at the apartment of the Naked Angel Girl, and there is black smoke and flame billowing from the window. I panic. I try to run into the apartment, but the firemen appear and they prevent me from going into the building. Strangers grab me and drag me away from the building. I shout at the top of my lungs, "My naked angel lives there! My naked angel girl lives there! She saves my life! I need to save hers!" Firemen pour from their trucks to do battle with the fire. I run into my apartment and on into my bedroom, and I hide under the covers, and I want to cry, but I can't. I want to cry, but I can't because I need my naked angel girl to help me out here. Then at this point, it turned into something, like the end of Wizard of Oz. People just appeared around my bed, my siblings, my mother, my little brother. They all tried to chat me up, saying things about me running away from home. What? Running away from home? I tried to respond. I was going to ask for some clarification as to what the hell was going on. Was there really a naked angel girl? Was there really a fire? Have I been running away from home? Then like when the Oz guy, when he peeks into Dorothy's window, my mom's friend enters the room. And he wants to know if I'm all right. Because he says he saw me running away with a suitcase in my hand. I freeze. He says, "Why would you break your mother's heart and run away from home?" I know why. But the why is buried beneath miles of scar tissue. Then my mom's friend says, you're filthy and you need a shower. So I shower. I step out of the shower and my mom's friend is there with a towel. I can't leave. I don't know how to leave. He says that I should be grateful for for him finding me after I had run away. And I realized right at that point in time, I was running away from him. Doesn't he know that? After it happens a couple times, your mind and body become inert. That's just what happens. At least back then. Back in the days when permission was an option. The friend very slowly and deliberately runs the towel over me. He's quite specific in where he wants to dry me off. This feels shitty, and it must be my fault. My brain is frozen. I'll just let him finish. I turn my head and I look in the mirror and I watch my reflection dissolve into that of the naked angel girl. And then I cry. At this point, I can't help but tumble through memory after memory. It's like I'm falling down the longest staircase ever. Each step punches itself into me. I feel the pain and chaotic disassembling of reality. It's May of 1977. I'm a senior in high school. It's been less than 2 years after my dad died, and I'm living with a temporary guardian who, as it turns out, is another terrorist of the soul who uses weaponized grateful like he invented it. It's senior year, and I was making bad choices because I had no choices. I'm in an art class, and the art class is taught by Miss Dixie Sack. And Miss Dixie Sack always dressed in a really short skirt, which was the style of the time. And while she was diagramming horizon lines on the chalkboard, while she was doing this demo, her dress would lift up and down in a rhythmic sort of way, which revealed to me a glimpse of her wonderful panties. Miss Dixie Sack was my art teacher, and I was in my last semester of school without a clue of, what to do next. But the anxiety of what to do next, as well as the anxiety of my life at the moment, was relieved because every time I would see her brightly colored, patterned underwear, it somehow relieved the anxiety of my life. Now, Miss Dixie Sack, I just want to say, wasn't deliberately showing me or anybody her underwear. I just want to make that clear. Miss Dixie Sack was not lascivious in any way, at least, what I know about her. Actually, I don't know anything about her other than she was an art teacher who wore short dresses and had pulsating underwear. She was oblivious to the effect her panties were having on me. But Miss Dixie Sack's underwear had inserted itself into my self-absorbed brain as the most amazing thing ever. It was like it was like as if her underwear were like, the sirens. Like if you looked at her underwear, you would hear a beautiful song and then crash up against something and die. I knew I shouldn't look, but if an opportunity arose, yeah, I would look. But I should turn away. It's the right thing to do. So I willed myself not to look at her underwear. I just stopped looking in her general direction. And oh, by the way, I was doing real good at not looking. I was making progress. But about 2 weeks away from graduation, I fell off the underwear wagon because, and I swear this is true, I actually heard Miss Dixie Sack's underwear singing to me. Ah, look at me. Ah, look at me. I am vibrant and pulsating underwear. Ah, look at me. I started to panic. I mean, I really did. Did I actually hear her underwear sing? Am I having another nervous breakdown? I've had too many already. And so I immediately stood up and, I left the class saying that I had a doctor's appointment the next day. Well, I show up to class again, but this time I show up, wearing, one of those sleep masks, blindfolds, and earplugs. Miss Dixie Sack says, Richard, what are you doing? We're having a drawing demonstration. I'm just protecting myself. From what? Your underwear? Excuse me? Everyone, started, staring at me. Miss Sack, your underwear is singing to me. It's like I'm Odysseus, and your underwear is like the sirens, and it's calling to me so I can crash into something and die. Okay, Richard, if you're going to be a comedian, you're going to need to leave. I'm just saying that your underwear is singing to me. I'm calling down to the office, Richard. I want you out in the hall. Believe me, being in the hall is perfect. I don't have to hear your underwear sing. You're being abusive, Richard. Now get out of class now. So I'm in the hallway, and I feel stupid. And I have a sleep mask around my neck and earplugs hanging from my ears. And after a moment, Miss Dixie Sack comes out, into the hallway. She grabs me by the arm, drags me down the hall, tosses me into an empty classroom. She slams the door, and she looks at me, and she says, "You're the only man for me. Let us get married." Huh? My underwear calls for you, because you are the chosen one. I am? You are the very first and only person to ever hear my underwear. Okay, okay, so I did hear it? Yes. Okay, so why am I hearing your underwear? A spell was put on all the women in my family. The only way they can marry a man is when a man hears the magic singing underwear. But I'm a high school kid. Isn't it against the law to marry a high school kid? You'll be graduating soon, and then you'll be a man. Really? Yes, put your arms around me, listen to my pulsating panties, and kiss me. And I did just that. I wake up in the nurse's office. My nose and eye hurt really badly. I'm lying on a cot. School security guard is on one side of me. The principal and assistant principal, are standing on the other end of the cot. On one side is Miss Dixie Sack, and she looks really pissed off. The principal tells me that I'm getting kicked out of school because I pulled up Miss Dixie Sack's dress and started singing to her underwear. At that point, she kicked the shit out of me. My temporary guardian appears in the nurse's office. I have a temporary guardian because I kept running away when I lived with my mother. I did not know how to tell her the truth, why I was leaving. She calls another friend, and I am shipped off with him. But then after a hiatus, it was out of the pot and in the frying pan. I didn't know him well. I just wanted to finish school. I just wanted to start a life, at least get to the starting line of life. The temporary guardian appears in the nurse's office, and I don't want him here. I don't want him here. I just want to go back to to singing underwear land. Temporary guardian goes off into another room with the principal, assistant principal, and Miss Dixie Sack. A deal was struck. I will remain in school, and I will graduate, but I was no longer allowed in art class. My temporary guardian drives me back to the apartment we both inhabit. His apartment, really. I had no stake in anything. I'm not a beggar, or rather, I am the beggar. Yeah, I am the beggar, not the chooser. We don't speak on the way home. He opens the door and enters, into the place that I merely somehow am some sort of Dickensian residence. I enter the apartment. He shuts the door. I walk past my temporary guardian. He reaches out, grabs me by my arm, and pulls me into his lap. Aren't you going to thank me, he says. This is the same routine over and over. Was I not grateful? I feel his hands take the same route over my body. This always happens. I do something stupid, I get in trouble, he gets me out of trouble, and with his shaky old man hands, he reminds me that I should be grateful. His hands are outside my underwear. I close my eyes and leave my body. That's what I do every time. You think I would just leave the temporary guardian, but I don't know. I don't know how to do that. Where would I go? I leave my body, but my body remains in place, which he takes as a tacit agreement to fondle. Maybe this is a learned trait, not to run. Maybe I learned not to run. You're not good enough, Richard. Be grateful for whatever comes your way. Be that grateful dog scratching at the window. Maybe it's just meant to be. I do what I always do. I just leave my body and think of Miss Dixie Sack and her singing underwear, or my naked angel girl. I return to the present, whatever that means at this point. I was awake. I was me existing in the now. And I was feeling pretty relieved. It seems as if there had been a reprieve from the memory rabbit hole. I really never believed the reincarnation, frigid, Polson thing. It was all hope and no substance. I was just hoping against hope that I wasn't really a perennial asshole. I was an asshole because I am an asshole. I was schooled to be an asshole. I'm Victor Frankenstein, and my past, which I have been author to, wants a reckoning. It is the monster. Maybe I'm the modern Prometheus. That might explain me. It's inevitable if you're going to be a bitch when you're getting, your liver pecked out all day long, only to have it grow back and get it pecked out again. That shit breeds bitterness. It all makes sense, though. I'm cursed because I never confronted a thing. I buried almost everything. My entire essence became constipated. My past is a monster, and it wants a reckoning with me, wanting me to account for it, accept it, and embrace it. But I have been running from it, refusing its entreaties, so now, at my age, I am exhausted from running, and so my past has finally found me. This time travel thing seems to be making some sense now. I walk right up to the flat screen TV in the living room, and I look at my reflection, and I ask my reflection a question. Do you think it's more than just a coincidence that my middle name is Victor? My reflection immediately disappears. The screen flickers, then an image appears, and I see me with Danny Brown and the other kids in the neighborhood. I have now been backwards in time. I'm 10 again. Fuck. I'm sitting with Danny Brown in a wooded fort made by my dad. Parents are on the verge of a divorce at this time. You can feel the beginnings of change in the house, so I try not to go into the house except to use the bathroom and to eat. Oh, and sleep, when I can get some sleep. I'm in the fort with Danny and the other kids from the neighborhood, and Danny does what he always does, and that is show us his penis. I'm me now, watching me then, and Danny on a flat screen who is showing us his penis. Danny loves to show his penis to all of us, all the time. It happens a lot. So you'd think it would just be a part of everyone's day, but no. It was always weird and uncomfortable, and nobody said anything. There was just silence. What should we say? What could we say? We were too young to have gathered together enough vocabulary to discuss the penis-showing event. We just hadn't lived that long, not enough life experience when it comes to penis watching. Danny shows his penis to anybody, everybody, neighbors, passersby, people in the playground, in his backyard, in the fort that my dad built, on the edge, side of the apartment that we lived in. Everybody took it as an everyday event. Danny is showing his penis. Oh, that Danny, son of a gun. Seeing a penis other than your very own is scary. To this day, I still find it scary. I cannot go into locker rooms without having an anxiety attack. Men in locker rooms wait to free willy. Penises are like the Jurassic Park of body parts. Penises are so prehistoric looking. They look like an afterthought. The design just doesn't look very well thought out. I'm not talking functionally, I'm talking aesthetically. Think of the context. Looking at your own penis, you either, you stare straight down or you see it in the mirror. Seeing another penis, you have to see it as it is actually attached to the male body. And it looks like a misanthrope. The penis just looks like it doesn't even like being a penis. The penis looks like it hates itself. It's true. Penises look bitter or outrageously comic. I can't really tell. Oh, I have my own theory of the penis, by the way. Here it is. In the Darwinian scheme of things, millions of years ago, you have prehumans, and the female prehuman is all formed and packaged, but the male prehuman is not. So they got to solve the, procreation bit. So the evolution genie was like, oh man, I knew we forgot something. Then the genie, pointing to some male prehuman, said, here, wear this. I'll fix it later. But the evolution genie lied. It never fixed it later. It's still the same thing that was stuck on at the historical last minute millions of years ago. That's my theory. I'm sticking with it. It's amazing that other parts of our bodies have evolved, but not the penis. I think men harbor an ancient jealousy of women because there is poetry in a woman's body. There is an aesthetic, a golden mean. There are peaks and curves and valleys, and everything makes sense. There is a cosmic geometry to all women's bodies, and it's brilliant. But with men, the penis is like the big boner of the male body. The penis is like a gag gift you buy at Party City. Enough with the penis rant. Anyway, so Danny Brown and his penis, he would gather kids in the neighborhood and he would bring them to the treehouse that my dad built. And he built it in between his ragings, and he would show us his penis, Danny would. He would just lay in the treehouse with his penis hanging out. There'd be no talk, silence, nothing, just penis. Just penis showing. And that would last for about 10 minutes. Then he would pick some kid, and they would go someplace. I don't know where, I didn't ask. I was just happy I didn't have to look at the damn penis. Whatever kid that Danny chose to go with him, to whatever that secret place was, that kid seemed so grateful. Whenever Danny did his penis bit, I would always look away. I would look away and I would think about Flipper. The TV show Flipper, about the dolphin. Whenever I was in high-stress moments, I went through this phase. Whenever I was in high-stress moments, I would replay episodes of Flipper in my brain. Thinking of Flipper put me in a very happy place. I wish I were, one of the two boys in the show. I wish I knew them. Sandy and Bud were my friends. I wish they were my friends. I bet they didn't even have penises. I also wish there were dolphins, like Flipper, who could swim in the air. How cool would that be? You're walking around and dolphins just float by. I wanted Flipper to come flying into the fort and bite off Danny's penis. Then take me away from this horrid crap of life. And I changed my name to Bud. The flat screen flickers, and it is the next day. I'm in the fort with Danny and his penis. And I'm looking around, I'm going, oh, where's Flipper? Where's Flipper? Because I want him to bite off Danny's penis. Danny puts his penis away, and he asks me to follow him. I'm scared. I am not grateful. I'm 10, and I don't know how to say no. We never know how to say no. I follow behind Danny, and he walks over to another apartment building, and we go in. I stand outside of the apartment as, he is inside the apartment talking to some lady, and she, appears to be rushing frantically about, saying something about being late for work. She grabs her purse, hands Danny a pile of money, and runs out. Danny tells me to, come into the apartment. We sit in the living room of the apartment. He says he's a babysitter, watching a little girl who then appears, walks into the living room. I don't know who this little girl is. I've never seen her in the neighborhood. I think she might be my age. I mean, she looked like my age. And then I got a really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. I don't like this. That's my first feeling. No, it was more than a feeling. It was a rush of fright that could be measured on a Richter scale. Danny says hello to the little girl like they were best friends, but she doesn't respond. He grabs her by the arm and he tickles her. She does not respond. She is now looking at me directly in the eye. She is communicating something, but I cannot hear. She is sad. She looks she looks extremely sad. She is a little person like me with a ton of sadness. How can she carry all that sadness? And I want to say, I want to find some way to say, I'll help carry your sadness, but I don't know how to form sentences. I don't like this. That's all that is repeating in my brain. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. She is standing in front of both Danny and me, and my mind sends a message to her. I am not with him. I'm a prisoner too. And I don't know how to leave either. No one ever taught me how to leave. But I don't think she is receiving my message. Is her mind broken? Danny says under his breath to me that he only lets special people see this, and I'm special. I'm special. How many fucking times have I heard that? Every time I hear that, it doesn't end well. He only lets special people have this fun. He tells the little girl to take off her clothes. She does nothing at first. You can see on her face that she is fighting the fear. I absorb her fear like a sponge. Danny uses a threatening dad-like tone and says he'll tell her mother that she was bad. Does the little girl really think that her mother would be mad at her? She has to comply. We always comply. That's the rule. You comply. Because there is no exit. Danny then begins to remove her clothes. She is still. Tears roll down her cheeks. Snot runs out of her nose. And she sounds as if she's choking on her own humiliation. I lock in on her face. Her facial expressions are like a map. As Danny undresses her, I see on her face where Danny's hands are and what they are doing and where they are going next. I'm choking. I'm choking. I'm going to throw up. I can't breathe. The oxygen has been sucked out of the apartment. Struggling with each step, I move unnoticed to the outside door. I struggle to turn away from the gaze of the little girl. It's like a Herculean effort. I open the door because I am suffocating. I turn back and I look into the room and I see the entire picture, one that has now returned to my brain.
Danny is pawing at a naked little girl. She is crying. He is smiling. I do not know this little girl. I don't know what this moment is. I cannot define it. I'm seeing the end of her life at the beginning of her life. It's all on her face. I run. Sure, I should have stayed. I should have intervened, but I was collapsing. I was collapsing like a building in an earthquake. No excuse. I know, no excuse. I can never be forgiven. I knew right then and there it was also the end of my life. That girl and I were the same. The end of my life at the beginning of my life. I run out of the apartment. I throw up on the stairs leading outside of the apartment. I am sick. I am sick like a dog. And I run and I run and 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 run. But I did not go anyplace. My starting line and ending line have always been right in the same exact place, the same exact spot. I always become what I run from. I ran from that little girl, but I became that little girl. I'm so scared that I may run from Danny Brown. And when I finish, cross the finish line, will I become a Danny Brown? I hear this incessant knocking on a door. It was as if a knocking door were an object that was following me as I ran away from what I always run away from, that monster, my past. At this point, I am so far from my frigid pulse and theory, the truth behind my shitty woulda, shoulda, coulda, oops, shouldn't have done that kind of life. But I'm thinking, what do I do now with all these painful memories? You can't kill them. Found that out. Do I kill myself now? Is that it? Why am I remembering this horrible shit now? That's what I was thinking. When Scrooge woke from his terrible journey, at least he was redemptive, happy, and totally sane. But me, I'm kneeling in front of a toilet inside my bathroom, throwing up. More knocking. I lean over and open the door. My son is standing in the doorway. He is sleepy-eyed, and he says, "Good morning." Then asks, why was I sick and if I was feeling better? Two direct and very simple questions. Simple to answer, really. But in my state of mind, at that point in time, I realized why I was sick. What made me sick? And I'm not feeling any better. I'm not happy or redemptive, and to my son, I don't make a promise of a half a crown for a turkey delivery. Instead, kneeling in front of a toilet, this is what I said to my son. You see, son, the monster was searching for his creator named Victor, which, by the way, is my middle name. And what I'm trying to say, you see, the whole problem with me is that I am both Victor and the monster. I'm pursuing and I'm running away, all at the same time. I'm running and I'm scared. I'm in a permanent state of jump fright. You know, in a movie, when the slasher appears out of nowhere, you freak out and you practically jump out of your seat? That's a jump fright. Imagine just being in that state always. The jumping, frightened state, all of your life. That's because in my life hurt me. And as a result, I just ran away. I never fixed the hurt, son. Never confronted the hurt. But your past life, I found out, never goes away. You can't kill it. I was afraid of remembering stuff. I tried to eliminate my memories, my past. I hid from my life while living my life. Live, hide, live, hide, live, hide, live, hide. But they, as I found out, the memories continued to pursue me like the monster, which made me mad, bitter, and resentful. And instead of confronting the memory, I constructed a whole new me with brand new memories. But clearly that did not help. I lashed out at everyone and everything. It was all personal. Someone was out to get me, and ironically, son, it was me. There was this little girl. She could have been saved if I stayed or tried to protect her, tried to do something, but I was afraid. I didn't help her. I just never helped anybody. I just took and then left to find a whole new life. Then people would do shit to me. And I'm thinking, that's just how it is. That becomes the normal, really. People do shit to you. You see shit being done, and that is what we call life. Deal with it. You have a license to abuse me, so I guess I have the same goddamn license. That's normal. So I make a new life, cut out the past. The new life sucks because I make it suck. So instead of just trying to figure it out, to confront it, I just continue to make new lives and continually hacking away at the past. But it has become apparent that I've run out of lives. Son, I've run out of lives. I was at the dead end of a blind alley. I turn around and my past grabs me and drags me back. Seriously, son, I've spent the past 24 hours traveling in time, being chased by a monster assembled out of memories. Then my son, either out of boredom or sheer pity, stops my monologuing by giving me a hug. He says he's going to make me a breakfast and it will make me feel better. I'm left alone, depleted, confused, and thinking, should I flush the toilet? And then I remember chapter 24 from Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley. But soon he cried with sad and solemn enthusiasm, I shall die, and what I now feel be no longer felt. Soon these burning miseries will be extinct. I shall ascend my funeral pile triumphantly and exult in the agony of the torturing flames. And the light will fade away. My ashes will be swept into the sea by the winds. My spirit will sleep in peace, or if it thinks, it will surely think thus. Farewell.